Brandon Johnson is the worst mayor of all time. I thought Lori Lightfoot was, but hey, if I was a Chicago citizen, I'd probably want Lori Lightfoot back in. And to be honest, if she were to run for mayor, she would most likely beat Brandon Johnson in the poll. She might not win the mayorship, but she would definitely beat him. Brandon Johnson is a progressive. I've tried to figure out what a progressive really is, and I still don't know. I've come up that a progressive is somebody who just doesn't understand how money works and will do anything that doesn't make any sense on the behalf of the taxpayers while not understanding infrastructure and understanding how business and understanding how taxes and understanding how any of that stuff works, but while designing it for free out of thin air. That is a progressive to me. I believe that is complete lunacy in the American government. That's what my decision is. No offense, but that's what I think it is. Being a progressive is actually like being regressive. And we're gonna understand that once you have a progressive in office like Brandon Johnson, you actually regress. In comparisons to what you would see with some of the cities like in Texas or states or whatever like that, in comparisons to some other people. Now, Brandon Johnson has a $1 billion deficit. And to be honest, it's not all his fault. The migrant crisis has hurt Chicago very, very, very much. They are a sanctuary city. I believe that was their status before he became mayor. So he's had to spend this money to help out these migrants. Same thing happened with New York City. It happened throughout in no fault of their own, okay? However, they are the mayors, and so when you become the mayor, the blame is coming down on you because you're the one that said you're gonna do all these things and not understanding you had a federal mandate. So, okay, I can kind of give you a pass on the migrant crisis to a certain extent. But here's what I can't give you a pass on. How you have spent or misspent some of the money. First of all, you're $1 billion in debt. The mayor, who is $1 billion in debt, decides to do this.
And amid a budget crisis and a swirl of controversies, NBC5 Investigates has learned that Mayor Brandon Johnson has signed a $100 million contract extension for Favorite Healthcare Staffing.
Now, that's the Kansas-based company that operated the city's migrant shelters for 2 years. NBC5 Investigates' Bennett Haberly is joining us now with what the mayor had to say about this. Bennett?
Well, Alex, we tried to get some clarity on this, but the mayor sidestepped our questions about why this $100 million contract extension was necessary. Instead, he talked about how his administration has saved Chicagoans money and created jobs. Since August of 2022, Favorite Healthcare Staffing has been paid $291 million to staff the city's migrant shelters through a mix of city tax money and federal funds. The company's been criticized by alders for exorbitant hourly rates between $50 to $156 per hour. And our own investigation last year showed the company routinely billed the city 84 hours per week per employee.
That's step number one. Step number two, when you're $1 billion in debt, is to do this for your wife.
As the city of Chicago grapples with a massive budget shortfall, NBC5 Investigates has uncovered records showing that the city spent $80,000 renovating a single office to be used by Mayor Johnson's wife, the First Lady of Chicago.
The receipts show that city workers did much of the labor and billed the city for that work. Here's NBC5 Investigates' Bennett Haberly with the story. Bennett.
Yeah, Alex and Allison, these renovation or redecorating costs, well, the mayor says won't bankrupt the city, come at a time when Chicago is facing a huge financial hole and weighing all options, including potential layoffs, to make up for this deficit.
That's right. Upgrade the, mayor's mansion, give her $80,000 worth of furniture, and then say, well, that money is not going to hurt the $1 billion budget. So then why do we have budgets? Okay, if you're already $1 billion in debt, you shouldn't spend $80,000 on something that you don't really need, right? A good leader wouldn't do that. But now here's a situation that's going to happen now. Brandon Johnson is trying to cut police funding. What? And then at the same time of cutting police funding, this is also going to happen. So what is also happening with Brandon Johnson is that he is canceling 2 months of police academy classes and faces layoffs or even a property tax increase to close the nearly $1 billion budget deficit. Now, what does this mean?
And as the city faces a nearly $1 billion budget deficit, the Chicago Police Department could be affected. NBC5 has confirmed Mayor Brandon Johnson has canceled 2 months of police academy classes. This comes after Johnson said budget problems would not extend to the city's emergency services. He's also ordered department heads to plan for potential layoffs, hoping to save the city $75 million. Johnson has to close a $223 million budget gap by the end of this year and erase the $982 million budget gap for 2025. He has not ruled out raising property taxes, which is something he campaigned against.
So as you can see, new police academy people won't be able to come in. And we already know that Chicago is suffering. It's usually one of the most dangerous cities in the country, okay? And not only is it dangerous because of the Black disciples or GDs and all that other stuff going on in the Hispanic gangs, add into the fact you now have Venezuelan gangs in the mix, migrants, right? Migrants, not all of them are causing crime, but of course, crime is running amok and you have more dangerous gangsters than you're used to. All kind of things have been happening to people in the city of Chicago, just like in New York City. So what you would need to do is you basically want to make sure that you have police officers that can come in and be trained. You know, obviously, like I said, some police officers are in the line of fire. Some of them will have to retire. It's kind of like in any, profession. People die, natural death, or people get hurt. So when you can't defend your streets, what happens is it encourages criminals to continue to do the wrong things because simply you just can't protect your citizens. So now what you're doing is you're taking money away from your emergency services, which the man said that he would not do. He wasn't interested in taking away from the emergency services that the city needs. So imagine you have a house, you're living on the west side or south side or any part of Chicago, and you're paying your taxes, you're paying your property taxes, by the way, which can be risen now because of what's going on. And now your emergency services can't come. What about things like the fire department? What about those people who have, paramedics and you need people to come out and do things? So if that budget is cut and you can't even protect people in that regard, it's just really bad. So why am I even living in the city of Chicago if you can't support what I'm trying to do or even support what I'm doing as a citizen? Because you're giving all this money to these migrants and now the city's security has to pay. So that just, it's all bad. Imagine another city running well having to be at this disadvantage. The economy of Chicago alone is worth $770 billion. That economy is bigger than Nigeria, than Uganda, and Kenya combined, okay? It surpasses the entire economic output of Switzerland. And you're cutting your budget on police. Give me a break. So as you know, crime is very big in Chicago and has been for years. Now you don't have the money for certain things that you need in the city, which is education, which is suffering. Now, new police officers can't be trained. You have more migrant gangs in Chicago who have heavy artillery, even threatening some of the black gangs that you had. So you have your black gang still, you have your Hispanic gang still, now you have your migrant gangs, and now you don't have new police officers that can come in and defend this against the city. What do you think that the city is going to turn into? And again, that shows me a level of mismanagement and not caring. And even politicians in Chicago believe this about Brandon Johnson.
I've never, ever in my 25 years in public office have seen any type of dysfunction, disorganization as you are seeing right now today.
As you heard the alderman say, Brandon Johnson doesn't care about anybody. He's doing whatever he wants to do, very similar to a dictator. And unfortunately for the city of Chicago, he has about 3 more years, or about 2.5 more years, to continue destroying the beautiful city that you love and you live in. By the time he's done with it, Chicago would have turned into dust. literally. And maybe we may never get another black mayor in Chicago again. And I could see why that could happen after people being disgruntled. But hey, this is what happens when you're voting in guys who are losers and who don't want to do anything for the city or for the community or for anything that brings any value to people besides being a so-called progressive, whatever that means. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy LC Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode here on Kinganda. I'm out.